Guys, this does not have to happen. This is not even on schedule. So I'm breaking protocol in this, so what I need is that you guys stay quiet. Even the people standing up here, you have to be quiet so that you can find out what's happening. All right? We're trying to start something. All right, I want to go through, let each person who's up here say who they are and what they're dressed as. Ready?
I'm a pimp.
All right, they didn't hear you now. All right.
Left eye.
She's left eye from TLC.
I'm a Dark Lord.
Dark Lord. All right, so they're biker girls. I just put Shay's Pocahontas. Faith is a hippie. Timothy's a coach. Ray is a basketball player. You got Bob Marley.
Big Boss from Metal Gear.
All right. So you got Scott, who's Big Boss from
Metal Gear.
Metal Gear.
And I'm a redneck.
Clayton said he's a redneck. All right. Step to the front. Hold on, y'all. Be quiet. Be quiet. All right, we got Harley Quinn, Mallory.
I'm a bunny.
Lashana's a bunny. Hannah's a kitty. Come on, Daisy. Daisy's a pirate.
I'm a vampire.
And Olivia's a vampire. Emily is... Emily is Pocahontas.
I'm a cat.
Aaliyah's a cat. All right, if I've already said who you are, I can control some of that. All right, we got Michael. Michael's a rock star. Abigail's a wolf. Blessing is Little Red Riding Hood.
I'm a pimp.
If people weren't so busy talking, you would have really heard the joke that Dr. J just said. Because you guys were talking, I'm not going to share it.
Yeah.
So maybe you'll be quiet. All right.
That'll teach you.
Serenity, she's a dark elf. What's your name? Jana's the victim of Desiree's the Bride Reaper. Yeah.
Hey y'all, I'm Harleen Quinzel. If you see Mr. J, let him know I said hi.
All right. Harley Quinn. All right, Madison is Harry Potter. Jemiah's a cat. Aaliyah's Minnie Mouse.
I'm the scariest thing up here. Student loans.
All right, so this costume right now is way over your head. But when you go to college, this will be your nightmare. All right, he's student loans.
I'm every teenage boy's worst nightmare. Hey guys, raise your hands and raise. Be quiet.
All right, George is the Martian from Looney Tunes.
I'm a navigation shooter. A navigation shooter. It's a competitive shooting competition in Switzerland.
All right, so he's got the ear exposed because he can't carry the gun. But I get it now. All right, the last one. This may go over some of y'all head. William said he's the 1%.
Call him in for special.
All right, and we got Miss Patricia looks like Poison Ivy. And for those of y'all that didn't see me this morning, when I had all the candy, Rhea got it. I was the candy man. And for those of y'all that didn't get Dr. J's joke, he said he was a pimp.
What's so funny? That's not funny. Butch, stand up. Ann, stand up, Ann.
Miss Ann. All right, and so last hands up before I turn it over to Dr. J. Listen, a lot of energy here today. Next week, Miss Ann showing you what next Monday is going to look like. Next Monday is the start of Spirit Week. Am I correct? So the first day is Medieval Monday. Medieval Monday. So you guys got to really be creative. All right? You ready, Dr. J? All right, today you guys have fun, be safe tonight. Whatever you're getting here on the campus, 5th and 6th grade, guys, we're going to see you when you walk around. I just ask that everybody put all the paper in the trash. All right? Let's not let the sugar overtake you and cause you to have a bad week. All right? Let's stay focused. School is first. Thank you, sir.
Because of all the levity, I'll skip the jokes. We're gonna do a question answer session. You come up with a spiritual question of some kind about God, about the Bible, or something like that. We'll have a general forum on it. Now, let me give you some basic rules if you haven't done this before. I will determine whether the question you ask is foolish or not. As long as you're asking at least somewhat of a decent question. You can ask any question you want about any religion, about any thing in the Bible you might be wondering about, or what have you. And we don't want to make it too long. So what you do is come up with something that you really want to ask, anything that you want to ask. I've got 3 questions that have been given to me in the last 2 weeks, and I'm going to start us off by trying to answer those. Now I want you to keep this in mind. I don't have all the answers. I'm not God. I don't understand everything, and I can't give all the answers to some of these questions because I don't have all the answers. I'll do the best I can with my research and my education, and if you've got a better answer or something like that, we're willing to listen to you. Okay, enough of that, I think said, all right? Number 1, is it okay to marry someone of another color? Never. Give me your attention. Give me your attention. It is never right under any... We're going to listen to me speak in a minute if you can't handle this. It is never right to answer a question or ask a question based on the color of skin or based on a race. We all have the same blood. We all live and die the same way. Now the differences that come between people, as far as I can ascertain or conjecture, let me define conjecture. Conjecture is taking what we understand of some knowledge and putting it in an answer to what we are trying to reason out. And God has made it very clear, come now and let us reason together, saith the Lord. We have a right to reason, that's why you've got a mind. Now when it comes to someone of another color, as far as I can conjecture, I told about the story of the Tower of Babel. That's when the people scattered into the different worlds and into their own languages, where God scattered them because they became too proud, and he put them in different portions of the earth, and then the peoples came to be. So up until that time approximately, people intermarried, and there was no problem in the intermarriage, which will also answer some of the second question. The intermarriage was allowed, and there was no difficulty in division. But color is not to be ignored. So it's very important when you determine where you are. Let me go back a little bit. One of the reasons that God has been so distinct about races and religions is because he wanted to keep his religion pure. He wanted to keep his 10 commandments straight. He wanted to make it sure that he was the only God, and what happened is when they created the Tower of Babel, and when they had gone with Noah and all the rest of the problems that existed, people started to worship all kinds of gods that they made up. Mythology gods, all sorts of gods with all kinds of religions and all kinds of rules. What God wanted to do was ascertain and keep together his people, which were primarily the Israelites. So what God was trying to do was keep his people together. And he's always, throughout history, had to work at keeping his laws and his rules away from those that were polluting it or changing it for their own sakes. Today we've seen people change and pollute religion as much as they've changed and polluted it down there, so that his rules have not been followed. The person of a different color is no different than you are. And do you have the right to marry someone of a different color? The answer is yes. Now you have to ascertain whether scientifically and health-wise that's something that works, and then you have to answer questions like, what kind of religion do they have? And you have to ask yourself honest questions like, how am I socially affected by where I live, and how does it socially affect my family? These are questions that you've got to ask and answer, and of course the two of you should answer that together, and then there is no barrier to what color you marry. The understanding is, however, that you should be socially honest with yourself and who it is you're going to marry and why, hopefully for the sake of love and hopefully for a better worship of God, and then what kind of religion they've got, what kind of culture they've got. You ask all the basic questions. There's nothing wrong with marrying somebody of a different color, there's a lot wrong with marrying somebody of a different faith because you're going to have problems. So the point is, you should sit down and honestly ascertain, does it make sense to marry this person? But the answer is yes. You can marry somebody of a different color. Question number 2. Who was Cain's wife? Now, I guess that question comes from my talking to you about Cain and Abel, and that's a good question. It would seem that from the Bible scripture that we can ascertain, Adam and Eve had many more children besides Cain and Abel. In fact, that was part of their job, to be fruitful and multiply. And as they multiplied, there was evidently no problem with intermarriage within the family for a while. So Cain either married possibly his niece or his grandniece, or even possibly his sister. There had to be some intermarriage there, and during that time there was no problem as long as the population was not great. Now when the population became greater, then you started dealing with the health problems and the other problems, and those problems took place with Noah's Ark and with people spreading out in the story like the Tower of Babel. So where did Cain get his wife? It was either his niece or his grandniece, somebody from the family of Adam and Eve, and they evidently had many brothers and sisters. And by the time you get to the Tower of Babel, you've got many hundreds of people that are involved in that problem. Just as in Noah's Ark, you know, he had to wipe out people because they were not following God's kingdom. God's primary concern in the Bible is how you feel about him and how you learn to worship him. And the customs and rules and the health rules that come from out of Leviticus and come out of Deuteronomy were health rules that we follow today, because God was trying to preserve us, and at the same time he was trying to preserve us with his Christianity, with an experience that we would learn to love God and worship him. We were made to understand God, and that's why the 10 Commandments start with, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." Every time that God dealt with his people, or every time that God dealt with others in the family of Adam and Eve, or any other family that he dealt with as they grew, he was dealing with trying to preserve their understanding of their faith in him. And he spends his entire existence up to today. If you read the entire Bible, you'll see how God is spending his existence helping you to understand who he is and how to get closer to him. And there aren't 13 or 166 Hammurabi rules, or as in some of them, 667 rules. You don't face that. You face with God the 10 Commandments, which from the very beginning he tried to ascertain, and he continues to try to ascertain today. And even then, when Jesus was around, as you know, he insisted on explaining that there were actually only 2 rules: loving the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and loving your neighbor as yourself. The first 4 rules deal with you working with God. The last 6 rules deal with you and your social life. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's family or property or what have you. The entire intent of the Bible is to teach you to stay with God, being the God that wants to help you. And we, having an evil heart, created our own religions, mythology religions. We created other ideas of religions. Even during the Reformation, we created even Christian religions where you had to pay to get out of heaven. Those aren't God's ways of working. That's why he gave us the 10 Commandments. Cain's wife had to be a member of his family. And then finally, is suicide a sin? I pray to God that none of you are thinking about suicide. I pray that you don't put yourself down to the point that you think you might as well get rid of your life. I'm praying that that's the case. If it is the case, you don't know how valuable you are. You are underestimating yourself, you're underestimating your value, and you're making yourself of no worth to God, and that's not right. You are not only worth everything to God, but if you had been the only person on earth, Christ would have died for you. And according to Jesus, what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and suffer the loss of his own soul? Let me make this clear. You, individually, you, your name yourself, you are worth more than the entire worth of the world. You belong more to God than anything else does, and you count that much. Now, if you're contemplating suicide, you're saying to yourself, I don't count for anything. I'm not worth it. And you're making Jesus' death practically useless in the sense that he died for you, trying to save you. You should be doing everything you can to save yourself and make yourself as valuable as you need to be. Now, let me warn you very much. Is suicide a sin? Absolutely. In fact, it's a breaking of the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt not kill. Suicide is a self-murder, where you're killing yourself, and you will answer to God for that. You need to realize that suicide is not allowed by God, and it's not something you should do, but it doesn't send you to hell. Can you still be a Christian? Can you still go to heaven after committing suicide? Yes. God will not send you to hell because you've committed suicide. You will answer for the sin you've committed. But the suicide that you commit is not only wasteful and not only a mistake for you, but you don't understand your own value. And that's a real mistake. You are worth more to God than the entire worth of the world, and he is doing everything he can to save you. He has died for your sin, he has risen from the dead, and he is trying to enter your life and guide you and direct you because he loves you. If everyone in this room accepted Jesus, and one person here decided not to accept him, Jesus would miss that person. He would cry for missing that person. He would live as a father who wasn't able to get hold of that child, and you can break God's heart. He loves you more than you know, but you need to understand that suicide is a sin. It is not allowed by God, and the Bible is very specific. God decides who lives, and God decides who dies. You have no right there. You have no opportunity to get in the way of it or in the middle of it. And then second of all, you are so selfish, because there are people, whether you like it or want to believe it or not, who are going to miss you. There are people who actually cannot stop you from deciding what you're going to do to your own self, and there are people who are going to wish you were around. You need to think about that, because you will hurt somebody greatly and they can't change it. Once you take your life, they can't find you anymore. They break in their own heart. If dad loses you or mom loses you, they can't straighten it out. If your child loses you, they can't straighten it out either. You need to know the kind of hurt and harm, not only that you're creating for yourself, but the harm that you're creating for somebody else. Have I said enough? All right, how about a question? Question? Anybody want? Somebody has one? You've been transported too much to this earth. Who's this?
Go ahead, hand up over there.
Go ahead. I was just stretching. Good job. Somebody else? Go ahead.
Once you boil it down, aren't most religions the same?
Once you boil it down, aren't most religions the same? No. Most religions have created their own direction or guidance. Now the reason that's a good question is because it shows you the difference between Christianity and the other religions. Jesus is the only one on this earth that has told us what happens to us when we die. Now, other religions have theories on what might happen and have self-proclaimed ideas. Reincarnation, it doesn't promise you what you'll become, but if you lived a good life, you become something good. And by the way, in many religions, the reincarnation, becoming a cow is the best thing that can happen to you. But there's a lot of things that all religions suggest, but only Jesus said, listen to me, and he was talking to Nicodemus at the time. He said, he that believes in me will not perish, but he that believeth not will perish. He that has life in me. He that has not life does not have life in me. So he was very direct. Either Jesus was who he claimed to be, and made it very understandable that we had to accept him or reject him, and we would go to heaven or hell, and we would know it. Or, now there are no other religions that are that direct. There are no other religions that make it that clear as Jesus. Now, Jesus could have been crazy. Could have been out of his head. Didn't know what he was talking about because he was so direct. But he made it very clear. He said he was God. He said he had come. He was the way, the truth, and the life. Everything he says, he directs right to himself. Does that help there? Anybody else?
I'm not sure.
Make the question quick.
When everybody says God was the first thing on the planet,
Everybody says God was the first day on the planet.
but no, like the first living thing, like spirit, but what made the spirit?
What did he say, Voltaire?
What made God?
Okay, what made God? The reason we worry about what made God is because we have a beginning and end. God made us. He also ends us on this earth, and we can be sure that we live and then we die. But that's where we don't understand. God never had a beginning. He never had an end. Jesus said, I am the same yesterday, today, and forever. The Apostle Paul says in Ephesians, look, you'll try to figure this out until you die. There is no figuring it out. The understanding is that God never had a beginning. He never had an end. He always was. And God has spent some of his existence trying to figure out what kind of being he wanted to be with him. He had the angels, and the angels behaved, and they did what he wanted them to do until they didn't behave, and then they broke the rules. And God sent them down to hell. Now, hell was made for the angels only. But when he made man, and made man in his image, then man turned against God as well. But God loved man so much that he's wanted to do everything he could to save man, and he's doing everything he can to save you and me as long as we agree to it. But the understanding is that God cannot live without us. And evidently, for the few people that send us to heaven, God is anxious. God loves us enough to make it worthwhile so that the rest of us go to hell. The point is, once we give our lives to God and accept Christ in our heart, God can love us and receive our love from him. He can teach us how to love, and God lives for that. Even the angels don't have the power to make that kind of choice. You and I are made higher than the angels, so we can accept Jesus in our heart, and so that we can rule with him in heaven. Does that help? Anybody else? We do? All right, let's show it then. Somebody should tell me.
Sorry.